Welcome to Season 1, Episode 1 of Ring Talk, brought to you by Combat Sports Entertainment. I'm Harrison Klopp. Joining me is Ike Everard and Brendan Falk. Ike, we'll start with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Harrison. Thanks for having me on here. Combat Sports Entertainment, is the place to be. So, yeah, couldn't be more happy to be here.
Definitely agree with that. Brendan Falk, how about you?
Really excited to get this going. Hopefully we'll get some content out to you guys pretty regular basis. We're really passionate about combat sports and sports entertainment here, so keep an eye out for some developments.
And he definitely said that well. We are so passionate about combat sports, and that's why we're here at 4:28 on a Sunday at the Edit Base doing this podcast. So how this is going to work is I'm a boxing guy, Ike is a wrestling guy, Brendan is a MMA guy.
Yep.
And we figured what better way to start out our podcast by telling you, the listeners, who the top 5 fighters are in each one of our respective sports. So here we go. We're going to start with boxing. We're going to then go into MMA and then go to wrestling.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say my list, and I want you guys to kind of just react to it, and we'll do the same. Is that okay?
Sounds good. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, we got a plan. So my pound-for-pound top 5 boxing. We're going to start with number 5, Triple G. And I was tempted to put Errol Spence in here, but I think Triple G is more accomplished. I still think even though he has one loss, that one loss could be debated. I mean, did he really lose to Canelo? I thought the first fight he definitely should have won, but that Adelaide Bird card kept that win from going to his total and instead made it a draw. So I think Triple G is better than most people give him credit for. He's honestly not a guy that gets a lot of love by the Americans. His Eastern European audience is always strong. But Triple G is my number 5. Why he's not higher, though, again, the loss to Canelo. And it does not leave middleweight at all. Has never done that except for his upcoming fight with Steve Rolls, which is at a 164 catch weight, which means they predetermine the weight before the two fighters meet, and so they've agreed on 164. I've seen Steve Rolls, not the best fighter, but still good speed, a lot like Triple G and where he's older, but I still think Triple G should win that. Number 4. Ike, you got any guesses who I've got number 4?
I got to say the only boxer I truly know of is Floyd Mayweather Jr., and I don't think that he's going to be at number 4. So
No, he is not. We've got Ukrainian Alexander Usyk at number 4.
Wow, yeah, see, I was not going to get
Usyk,
that one.
undisputed cruiserweight champion. He will have to drop one of his belts because he is moving up to heavyweight in May. May 18th, I believe, against Carlos Takam, who is a I want to say almost a gatekeeper in the fact that to really be a heavyweight elite, you've got to beat a guy like Carlos Takam. And I think that's what he will do because I like Usyk. I mean, he is so slick with his skills. If the big question for me would be if he can gain power, because I know he's got the skills to beat a top 3 heavyweight. But if he can gain power, I mean, he's going to be, oh my God, he's going to be unstoppable. So number 4, Usyk. Number 3, Ike. I'm going to give you another guess. Actually, no, you don't.
I think it's Brendan's turn for that.
Brendan's turn. Brendan, who do I have at number 3?
Look, I know heavyweights get a little bit too much love these days, but I think you could go a few ways here. I'm going to go with somebody who clearly thinks he's the best in the world by the fact that he refuses to come to America and fight Anthony Joshua with a heavyweight.
Okay, I like his guess, but that's actually not true. I think Anthony Joshua, that's a good point by Brendan. He is definitely a great fighter. I just think he has fought a string of heavyweights that I would not consider blue chip.
Yep.
And that's why he's not really in my list. He hasn't fought anyone that exciting, but that could change. I mean, there's rumors that he will fight a Wilder or Fury of next year. But number 3 is Canelo Alvarez. Canelo is 50+ wins, really, really good body puncher, hard hitter. I was thinking about it, who hits the hardest in boxing. I might have to put Canelo at number 1. He is only fights the best too, and he's fighting Daniel Jacobs over Cinco de Mayo. Actually, this Saturday, May 4th. I think he should win that. That's going to be a tough match because Jacobs does have that kind of a size thing where he can overpower you a little bit. But I think Canelo, why he's number 3, he's that track record, and I can't bet against that. So I do have Canelo winning that, and I do have him at number 3. Number 2, we're going to go back to you guys. Any guesses?
I'm kind of worried now because I would have put money on you having a heavyweight in this ranking, and I'm not so sure one's going to come. So I got nothing.
Okay, that's fair.
How about Errol Spence?
Errol Spence would be 6. Errol Spence, that's a really good guess. Errol Spence just has
You know what? I got one. Bud Crawford.
Bud Crawford is my number 2.
Oh, wow.
Is my number 2. Bud Crawford fought. That was a really good guess, actually. Bud Crawford has a set of skills which is so unique and so eye-popping. I mean, I was covering a fight last night in Phoenix, and there was a guy that had this same type of skill set as Bud Crawford, where he can switch from orthodox to southpaw so fast, and it makes you so hard. I mean, Marvin Hagler in the 20th century was known for doing that, and at the time he was the only one that could do that, and that's what made Marvin Hagler so legendary. And Bud Crawford, like Marvin Hagler, is an incredible switch hitter, and I think his record has shown that. Undisputed junior welterweight, has only fought at welterweight for about a year, and why he's not number 1 though. He has beaten tier 4, tier 5 welterweights. I mean, I don't consider Jose Benavidez anything special. I don't consider Jeff Horn anything special, and those are the guys he's fought. And he obviously beat Amir Khan in April of this month. That's not an impressive win. I want to see him fight a top 4 guy. I would love to see him fight an Errol Spence or Keith Thurman, Manny Pacquiao. I think that would be exciting. But before we get to number 1, I've given you my top 4. I want to know reactions, thoughts. Ike, we'll start with you.
Well, I mean, I don't know a ton about boxing. I've been learning more, obviously,
That's fair.
for the past couple of months. But I like what you're saying. I like the reasoning that's behind your picks. I think that they're very solidly put. I'm curious what you think would happen. Obviously, Floyd Mayweather Jr. is old now, but he's still undefeated. What would happen if one of these guys fought him?
If Floyd Mayweather had fought someone in the welterweight division like Errol Spence, he'd lose. You look at who Floyd Mayweather's fighting. He's fighting, 20-year-old Japanese stars that have no track record. I didn't even know existed. I don't think anyone in the boxing world knew existed. But he's just taking the chumps and he's fighting them for money. He's not going to fight anyone that could scratch his record.
Also, when you think about it, when was the last time Mayweather had a true fight on his hands? Granted, it was the Mayweather-Pacquiao thing that happened, and I know Pacquiao was injured during that fight, but I think if you look at the bettors before that fight, everyone knew Mayweather would win regardless of the health of Pacquiao. So I don't think Mayweather's really been in a fight since probably before his Showtime deal, to be honest with you, because you look at that Maidana fights, those weren't particularly interesting or intriguing. He's all just concerned about the money. He's not concerned about being the best.
And I think also with Mayweather, he's not the most interesting fighter, but I still think he is a legend. Obviously, one of the greatest fighters of this era.
Can't go 50-0 and not be a legend.
So, B. Falk, what do you think about my top 4 so far? Well, really 5 through 2.
Yep. So, for me, I was kind of surprised that you put Canelo over Triple G. Now, I know that he's beaten him, but watching that fight back in September, that was one of the best fights I think I've ever seen. That was up there with Joshua Klitschko for one of the best fights I've ever watched in its entirety. I was shocked Triple G did not get that result, and I think it has to do with Canelo getting the benefit of the doubt because of his power ability. We know that Canelo can pack a punch, and you saw it in the mixed decision that was September 15th. So I was kind of surprised you had Canelo above Triple G just because I know you love Triple G.
I do love Triple G.
And Canelo really didn't look his best in either fight against Triple G. And if I were scoring them, I would have had Triple G winning both.
I agree with that. And I think, on a side note, I think why Triple G does not get as much love from me and others, because early in his career, he did not fight the best competition. And that's particularly because Triple G, like I've alluded to, does not get big American dollars. Yeah. I mean, his audience is really in Eastern Europe, and those are not those Romania, Ukraine, Kazakhstan countries aren't going to move the markets that big, and nobody wanted to fight him because it's like you're going to fight this guy that obviously is amazing. You're not going to make much money doing it. And so that's why he does not have the most unbelievable record as compared to a guy like Canelo, who's always made big money, who's always excited people in Las Vegas.
Yeah. And then going to your number 2, Bud Crawford. Watching that fight last week against Amir Khan, you felt bad for Amir Khan, who is, I would say, the 2A face of British boxing behind Anthony Joshua. He is absolutely beloved over there. He doesn't necessarily have the skill to be, but he is such an A-lister in Britain, and he comes over here and gets made look a fool by Bud Crawford. You can't say he's not an elite talent off what he did based off of Amir Khan's draw worldwide.
Well, Amir Khan, elite talent, maybe. Okay, yeah, that is fair to say.
I'm saying Bud Crawford, elite
okay.
talent, because he made Amir Khan, who is considered an elite talent by some who might not know about boxing, look so incredibly inept, I would say. He threw in the towel. He was asked, "Do you want to continue?" And he said, "No." Tell me any fighter in the world that could make someone who holds basically the hopes of a boxing nation on their shoulders say no is not an elite fighter.
That is a very good point. I just think Amir Khan loses a lot of big fights he's in. He gets big chances. He got a chance against Canelo.
Yep.
His only real defining wins were Zab Judah, but that was when Zab Judah was late in his career. Lost to Danny Garcia. I just cannot put Amir Khan into the limelight and say he's an elite fighter because every chance he's really had, he has not delivered.
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree with you. I'm just saying, you look at his popularity here, and granted it's the same with Triple G. His popularity in Europe is far higher than it is here. But he comes over and he represents this hope for the rest of the world to try and take down the American that holds the crown. Terrence Crawford made him look absolutely foolish.
I definitely agree with that. I actually think that is a very, very good point. That is a great point. So, but before we get to number one, I'm going to start with Ike because Ike has been not doing the best with these guesses. Ike, who is the best boxer in the world according to yours truly?
Boxing, if I can even think of like a boxer, I think it's got to be Tyson Fury.
Tyson Fury, okay. Brendan?
I would have probably 18 months ago said Tyson Fury, but I really like Alexander Gvozdyk. He is just a beast. I saw his fight against Tegudu and Gumbu. Made him look like a fool back in Philly in March and retained the WBC championship. You can't tell me that there's a fighter better in the world than him. He's 17-0.
Yes, that is true. That is true. He is. I would say Gvozdyk though is still a guy that's I believe 31. You want to check on that?
Yep. 32, just turned 32.
Just turned 32. It's a big thing with the Ukrainians though. They turned pro so late, so he does not have the biggest track record. I mean, He fought Adonis Stevenson, was not supposed to win that, beat him in Montreal. I think Gvozdyk definitely has the talent to, definitely has the potential to, but he hasn't had the ring resume yet. Yep. Number one though is another Ukrainian, Vasily Lomachenko, and I think I think that's really who it's got to be. He is the absolute best. He has knocked down champions and made them look like Brennan was using the word inept. That's really what he's made them look like. I mean, Guillermo Rigondeaux, who was thought to be a pound for pound champion, thought to be a defensive, maestro, he figured him out in a second.
Yep.
And ended that fight. Guillermo Rigondeaux had to leave. He's like, this guy is literally too good for me. And he has gone through multiple weight classes. He is really lightweight is not his true class, but he fights there now because it's the most money to be made. He has dominated that class. Anthony Corolla, fourth best fighter in the world, made him look like just a boy. So it's got to be Lomachenko just because how he has handled his competition that has been thrown at him. Every fight he has had really has been a title fight. And also, I don't know how much many of the listeners know about amateur boxing, but Lomachenko has the deepest amateur boxing career of all time. I think it's like a 362-1 record. Unbelievable. And that's why you can see it every time he steps in the ring. He's doing stuff that have never been seen before. And really, I listened to it was like Teddy Atlas called him a avant-garde, which means like a newcomer in the arts. Really, I like the word, but it's really what he does. He's introducing a new set of skills to the boxing world that nobody's ever seen. And again, on top of the reasons I've listed earlier, that's why he's number one. He's so good.
I think when you look at Loma and you consider the fact that he didn't turn professional until he was 25, he's won 2 Olympic golds, only lost 1 fight in his entire amateur career, and then he takes on the world of professional boxing by storm, frankly. He had 4 retirements in a row. Literally 4 times in a row when he was fighting as a professional, the opponent threw in the towel. You can't tell me that's not dominance. So I'm glad you had him on this list because I'm so into the big guys. I would have never thought about Loma as truly the best, but if you're looking at it from a technical and an ability aspect, there's no one that could even come close.
Ike, you've seen Lomachenko, I think, a few times. What have your takeaways been?
I mean, pretty much everything that you guys have said. He's just phenomenal, and the whole thing about bringing new skill set. Anyone who can do that and kind of identify these market inefficiencies in a sport is going to be successful, and they're going to be able to take it over. And the fact that he's still winning these fights just shows how good and how dominant he is. They haven't figured him out yet, and he just continues to innovate and continues to just destroy people.
Definitely true. And also another fun fact about Lomachenko, didn't start boxing until he was really late, like 10, 11, because his father made him do ballet. And that's why
that helps.
That's how he got the footwork that he has now. So we're going to shift over. We promised Brendan Falk's MMA top 5. Brendan, take it away.
Well, guys, the UFC, of course, has the stranglehold on MMA, and there are a few fighters outside of the UFC who I would argue could get into this 6 to 7 range, but I think definitely the top 5 are signed by that promotion. Started off with John Bones Jones. In his professional career, he's absolutely fantastic. 24 wins, 1 loss, 1 no contest. His 1 loss was in his 10th professional fight. It was a disqualification. So he's never been soundly beaten by anyone. The no decision, unfortunately, came with doping allegations after he beat Daniel Cormier, and he's going to show up on my list very soon, I promise you. But looking at John Jones, he's built for MMA. 6'4", 204 pounds. Very long, very athletic, and he carries his weight very well. He's very lean, means he can move around. He's also really good at every single aspect of MMA. So you look at the breakdown of his career. 24 wins, 10 by knockout, 6 by submission, 8 by decision. That's almost exactly split down the middle as far as his win ratio for knockout, submission, and decision. You can't tell me you're not the elite fighter in the world if you can. You can't draw that up any better, is what I'm trying to say. He's such an incredible fighter that he can win any way he wants to, and he can even break an opponent and make them retire.
Brendan, how come he comes in at only number 5 on your list then?
Oh, no, I went backwards. I'm saying number 1.
This is number 1.
I'm getting you guys all excited. Don't worry.
Got you.
Good answer. I'm, like I said, big boxing guy, but MMA is exciting at times, especially when there's an exciting fighter, and John the Bones Jones is definitely that guy for me. Do you know his brother is actually Chandler Jones on the Arizona Cardinals?
And there are other brothers in the NFL as well.
Super cool.
Oh, I wish I had those genes, let me tell you. So, number 2, Daniel Cormier. I spoke about him earlier in his loss to John Jones in his no contest. He's 22-1 with that 1 no contest, which happened to be to John Jones. The only loss came to John Jones, and that was back 4 years ago. So he's undefeated for the past 4 years, and it's a really interesting dynamic to see the two of those guys go at it, because everyone knows that the light heavyweight division in UFC is probably its deepest. You have some other fighters in the division like Stipe Miocic. You have Alexander Gustafsson. They're just very deep. And Cormier, only 5'11". Doesn't really carry his weight as well as Jones does. If you see him walking down the street, you probably wouldn't think that he's an athlete. But once again, I'm going to go to the breakdown of his professional wins. 22 of them, 10 by knockout, 5 by submission, 7 by decision. Very technically gifted and light on his feet for being 5'11" and over 200 pounds.
That's fair, and I think Daniel Cormier is like a ultimate motivational guy for me, because it's like, how was he able to fight these guys? He's so little, but he manages to get it done. Yeah. And I honestly I love to watch him.
Yeah, I think, like you said, he's kind of everything that makes UFC great. It's such a combination of, all these different techniques and all these different fighting styles that really allows people to succeed in different ways. Whereas boxing, obviously we talk about Loma innovating, but for the most part, it's set in stone. It's like you punch, and that's how you win fights. But in UFC, there's just so many different ways and so many styles that can be implemented, and Cormier is a great example of that.
Now we'll move on to the fighter who I think is the most versatile in the entirety of UFC. That doesn't mean that he necessarily has the mastery of certain aspects like my top two do, but I think he is the one who is about as split down the middle as you can get, which in MMA is what you really, really want. Khabib Nurmagomedov. In his 27 professional fights, he has yet to lose, and he has 8 knockouts, 9 submissions, 10 decisions. About as perfect as you can get down the split. Anybody who saw that match against Conor McGregor back in October, you know this guy is angry. First off, he fights angry. Second off, he wants it more than anyone else. And third off, he's been bred to do this. There was a video that came out after that fight of him fighting a bear cub from his native Russia when he was 7 or 8 years old. So his dad pushes him to do this, and so far it's worked out brilliantly. He's suspended now because of the Conor McGregor afters that ended up sort of putting a spoil on that event. But he is so incredibly dominant when he enters the ring. He wants to get you in submission holds. If he can't, he'll take you to decision. And if you're not trying to go to decision, he'll knock you out. He's got such incredible power, such incredible speed, and such incredible agility. All around an incredible fighter.
I really like Khabib, and I think, honestly, if I had to do my top 5 MMA, granted, I don't know as much as our expert here, Brennan, but I would probably say Khabib is just, I don't know how you beat his style. He'll get you in his little chokehold like he did with McGregor, and you'll never get out of it. So I really like Khabib.
Yeah, and I think the most impressive part of the whole thing is how you managed to pronounce his name with no hesitation. That's, I don't think I would have been able to do that, but he's also one of those guys who's super exciting, and obviously we saw that with the theatrics after the Conor fight. And I don't think that it put a damper on it as a WWE guy. I loved it. I thought that was fantastic, and it made me want to tune in again. So, yeah, definitely the out-of-the-ring element is being more and more important in UFC, and Khabib embodies that.
Guys, we head to number 4. I have Henry Cejudo. Now, you might disagree with him based on the record. He's only 14-2. He doesn't have any submissions. But technically, you watch this guy move around the octagon. He is one of the most exciting, nimble people, I think, in the world to watch fight. His 2 losses came back-to-back 3 years ago against Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, who actually no longer fights in UFC. He would probably be my 6. You remember in the beginning of this ranking, I said I had probably 6 and 7 wouldn't be UFC fighters. His other loss was to Joseph Benavidez out of, guess where? Phoenix, Arizona. Beautiful. Joseph Benavidez, who at this time was really flying back 3 or so years ago, but now he's sort of stepped back a little bit, so you can't blame him for that loss. But you watch Cejudo move around. He's only 5'5", but he looks like he's always in control no matter how big the opponent he's facing is. And I would argue that the fact his last fight was a 32-second knockout makes him dominant just off the bat.
Yeah, I think he was. I'm pretty sure he was like the odds-on favorite to not beat Dillashaw in the last fight, but just destroyed him. Should have been really how he performed. And I'll say this about Cejudo: if I was doing a pound for pound on top 5 character guys, Cejudo, my number 1. Really good guy. I've seen him in interviews. Just looks like a fantastic guy. So I'm a fan.
Yeah, getting into the little guys getting it done. You said 5'5", and I mean just knocking anyone out when you're 5'5". That's very impressive. And yeah, I mean, it makes it so much fun to watch, to see this, little dude who's shorter than all of us running around the ring, beating people up. And yeah, it's great. So I definitely agree with your pick there.
Finally, number 5, rounding it out, is a fighter who actually lost his last fight, Max Holloway. So Holloway, 20-4 in his career. His last match was against Dustin Poirier. And you can tell he's a really good fighter because the second Poirier knocked him out, he said, you got to beat the best to be the best. Clearly, there is an incredible amount of respect for Max Holloway in the game. He deserves it. His prior loss before that was to Conor McGregor back in 2013. So he'd gone almost 6 years undefeated. And granted, that was back when Conor McGregor was the golden boy of UFC. So think about all the pressure he was feeling during his last loss. Then you can go out there and sort of fight when there's no monkey on your back. You go out there, turn into one of the best in the world, and he really showed. No loss in 5.5 years until he absolutely got demolished, I have to say, by Dustin Poirier. But that doesn't have any effect on his ranking for me because of what Poirier said afterwards. You need to beat the best to be the best, and that's what Poirier did.
A guy that I'm not as familiar with as the other guys,
Yeah.
but a guy nonetheless still a champion, and I think, like Brendan referred to, has shown it in every way possible.
Yeah, so I mean that's your list, and a mission for me is the ASU guy, Cain Velasquez.
Oh.
I mean, he's obviously not the greatest fighter anymore. I think he got knocked out in how quick in the Phoenix event?
It
was
embarrassing.
Yeah,
Oh,
very
my
very
goodness.
quick, and
26.
but still an ASU product, which definitely endears him to us. But yeah, I liked your top 5 a lot. No Connor on there, which
Also, know someone you're probably going to talk about, Brock Lesnar.
true.
Brock Lesnar did not make an appearance here. Let's tee it up for you. Who are your top 5 pound-for-pound WWE wrestlers? Ike Everard, go.
All right, well, WWE is a little bit different than these because it's not a meritocracy. There's a lot of backstage politics that go into making somebody look good, and obviously the outcomes are scripted, so you can't really use record when you're trying to figure out who the best in-ring performers are. But these are guys who are a combination of great mic skills, great in-ring performance, and also have been pushed by the company a fair amount, because I don't think it would be as interesting to hear me talk about Apollo Crews or Chad Gable. So my number 5 is Samoa Joe. He is fantastic on the mic. If you look up his promos on YouTube, he cuts incredible work, and he's just super convincing. He's 282 pounds of pure athleticism. Now, the only reason he's down at 5 on my list is he's 40 years old. If this was prime Samoa Joe back when he was with TNA and the independent scene, he would be number 1. He has 2 bad knees now, though. He's old. He's a little bit slower, but still a phenomenal performer.
Just on the name alone, Samoa Joe, I'm pronouncing it right?
Yeah.
Samoa Joe, I'm a huge fan.
But you look at Samoa Joe, he does not look like an athlete.
No,
So it's probably good that he has the mic skills to entertain people at the WWE level, because he definitely doesn't have the body to become a superstar. So I'm kind of surprised he was on your list, but thinking about his promos, he does do a really good job of getting the crowd entertained and involved.
And with him, he will surprise you. He's super quick. I think he ran a 4.640 in his prime. Yeah, and I mean, you'd be surprised. You look at that body, but he is very quick. He is supremely athletic. If you watch his match, he really puts up ring work with some of the best in the company. Next up's the only woman on this list, Becky Lynch. She's the best promo in WWE. If you watch her, you will be glued to the screen, glued to her words. Absolutely fantastic. She's a workhorse. She's consistent. Night in, night out, she's bringing energy. She's selling moves. She is a great wrestler, and she makes the most out of every storyline. Even when she was buried on the card, she consistently had some of the best matches of the night with whoever she was against, even when that was someone like Dana Brooke or like Tamina, who, aren't known for their in-ring abilities. So now that she's in the main event scene, people are really starting to see that, and she's the face of the company right now.
Without a doubt, face of the company.
I think her push recently has made her the face of the company, but at the same time, I still think Charlotte Flair is the face of the women company. The face of women within the company, I should say, because she clearly wants to be pushed by management to sort of continue the Flair legacy, but at the same time, why would they have had Becky Lynch win that WrestleMania main event, though? So, I mean, I guess I agree with you, but at the same time, I still think Charlotte is, in the eyes of management, their A-game as far as women go.
See, now, that is the thing, and I think Ronda Rousey was up there, too, before she stepped away, but Charlotte Flair will always be pushed. She's obviously, like you said, Ric Flair's daughter, but that's what makes what Becky did even more impressive. She overcame that. She beat the Golden Child, and she really stole Vince's favor by WrestleMania, which obviously you can see now she's dual champion. And then third on my list, we got Walter, which is all capitals, just plain Walter. It screams intimidation. He's a huge name from the independent scene over in Europe, and he just signed with WWE. He became the NXT UK champion. So he doesn't wrestle in the US. He was at the Royal Rumble Access event, but that's about it. He's huge. He's 297 pounds, 6'4", and he uses that frame to just have an absolutely electric moveset. If you watch his matches, his signature chops, he leaves handprints on guys' chests. He hits hard, and he doesn't care, if you're going to hit him back. He is just such a great ring presence. They call him the ring general. He is one of the guys to watch, and if you need a reason to tune into NXT UK every Wednesday, he is it.
As a fan of NXT UK, I would definitely say Walter keeps me tuning in every weekend. Or week, excuse me.
I'm a big fan of NXT US, but UK not so much. So Walter is kind of surprising to see him on this list. Granted, I'd never even heard of him, but when Ike was going off on that, I did a quick little look up on him. He looks like he shouldn't be messed with. So I'll just take your words with it for the chops.
His nickname is Big Daddy Walter. This guy needs to go to SmackDown.
Yeah, I would love to see him come over to the States, but I do think that part of his contract was that he stays in Europe. He wrestled in New York the Friday before WrestleMania as part of the NXT TakeOver event when he won that UK championship. Now, number 2 is Ricochet. So here's a guy who's a lot smaller. He doesn't really look like a superstar, but he's basically a very, very combative gymnast. And he just got called up to the main roster from NXT. He more than makes up for his size with both his entrance, which they use lasers, his song's awesome, and then his matches. He's phenomenal. He'll do kick flips off the side, off the barricade. He'll do top rope moves every other move, which is unheard of. If you watch his matches, it'll blow you away what he's able to accomplish in the ring and how he just brings the show night in and night out. And I think that consistency is a big theme on this list. You can't have bad matches and be one of the top 5 best wrestlers.
Consistency is important. I think Brendan and myself can speak on that with our sports. Indeed, if you aren't consistent, you aren't going to be successful.
In such a performance-driven sports entertainment setting as well, it's nice to see someone who is an athlete first. Being able to go up on the top rope every move proves that he is supremely athletic. He's probably the best athlete in all of WWE. So that for one reason alone makes him the most entertaining.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that statement. Now, number 1 is going to surprise a lot of people. You guys got any guesses for number 1? I know you know wrestlers.
Big Show?
No.
John Cena.
Also no. So my number 1 is Mustafa Ali. This is a guy who was a cruiserweight on 205 Live for a long time. He got called up a couple months ago to SmackDown, and he's been getting quite the push. He's known as the heart of SmackDown Live, and I don't want to say that there's bias here, but he's been my favorite wrestler since I went to my first WWE Live event, and I saw him when he was on 205 Live, and I mean, it was just clear to me how talented he was in the ring. He sells every move to perfection. He'll take huge bumps. If you go back and watch the Andre the Giant Battle Royal at WrestleMania, he took a vertical suplex while being held up by Luke Harper on the apron of the ring, and he fell about 10 feet down onto his shoulder right next to his head, and then he flipped and smacked his face into the announce table. So this man is fearless. He does not care whatever. His finisher is called an 054, which is a reverse 540. He stands on the ring facing the crowd, jumps, and does an inverted front flip for rotation of 540 degrees. And he describes it. He says all he does is close his eyes and jump. It's really impressive to watch him wrestle. And yeah, so Mustafa Ali, my number 1 pound for pound in-ring performer.
Well, if you've got a move like that, the 054, like Mustafa has, I mean, who else is going to put at number 1? I totally agree.
And it's nice to see someone who's a good guy behind the scenes also gets a chance to be one of the guys who they push, because not many people know this, but Ali was actually a police officer before he got signed to WWE. So trying to make a change in his Chicago community, and now he's turned into one of the most talented and most pushed wrestlers on the WWE roster.
Yeah, so that's my top 5, Harrison. You mentioned Big Show. I don't think he's
just missed.
In terms of athletic and wrestling ability, I would not give him the honor of making the top 5.
And top 5 pound for pound broken hearts. I'm at number 1 after just hearing that. So that's going to conclude our episode of Ring Talk with Combat Sports Entertainment. Thank you for tuning in.